Okay, so we're about to go live. Actually, we are going live. So this is my live stream where I basically live stream while I work on graphic novels. I'm a cartoonist. I have two published graphic novels right now. One, Jacob's Apartment, which is a slice of life story that's like a doomed romance in the vein of Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind or Ghost World called Jacob's Apartment. That's available for pre order. And there's a link below where you can kind of find all the info for that. And we'll probably end up playing a trailer for that as well. And then I also have two stories, which is my autobiographical graphic novel about faith and mental illness. And that's handwritten, hand lettered, and hand inked, and available to be handed to you from Amazon currently. So you can get that. But that's also from Marcosia. So if you guys are interested in either book or the kind of content that I make on this channel, make sure you check that out. And now that we've gotten that all out of the way, now let's get into the fun stuff. So I'm working on illustrating the graphic novel Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural case for Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And I need to do about 230 pages of finished artwork by next April. And I had like a crazy week before today, where for quite a few days I was pretty under the weather, sick, and now I'm at about like 89% functionality. So I'm going to try to power through it and get some roughs done. I was hoping to kind of get to page 20. We'll see. I want to see how far I can get on this stream. I know on this stream, at minimum, I want to get to page 19 finished up. There were some issues with me trying to get the live stream up and running. So I went ahead and did my thumbnails before, and now we should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let me make sure. Okay, cool. I think everything's sent out and good. All right. So for anybody new to the stream, I'll just kind of walk through the format. So over here is where I work on the roughs and the thumbnails. So that's like a little shot of my screen and what I'm seeing on Photoshop. And then down here is the section of the script that I'm trying to kind of ideate and make into a reality. So I did a thumbnail where it's going to be like an upward shot of Elizabeth's maid, Wilson. And so that's basically the first section. The next one is going to be this this little section to the left or to the right of it, which is going to be them, a little bit of a low shot, but a little higher up of them both walking down the stairwell. And then, and we saw the stairwell a couple pages ago, like about 5 pages ago in the story. It has like some portraits and stuff like that kind of lining it. And then the mid shot is going to be them kind of, it's kind of almost like a comical shot, because this is going to be Wilson just piled with bags. Wilson is Elizabeth Barrett Browning's maid, and she's going to be kind of laden with too many bags to handle, kind of dragging them all down the stairwell. And then the last one's going to be we're doing a full page again, kind of like we did a couple pages back, where we're seeing the front of Wimpole Street, but this time it's going to be another carriage kind of pulling in front, and we're going to see the repeat of clatter, clatter, clatter. And I'm hoping that at this point in the script, from what I recall, I think this might be the last we see of 50 Wimpole for a while. So we'll see what we can do here. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get working, and we'll see what comes up. So this shot of the maid, I definitely am going to want her to have a bunch of like different baggage and stuff like that that she's carrying. I think we already did some research on what those look like, so I think we should be good. Trying to think if we need to look up any more bags, any more Victorian luggage. there was the books that we found. Trying to see if there's anything else. But I will say tonight, I'm definitely going to have like a harder out than usual. Like, oh, there was the Victorian luggage bag that we found that we kind of like. I'll keep that one visible, and then we'll just sort of. I think we'll invent the other ones, and if I have to look up reference for them when I get to the final, then we'll do that then. But at minimum, at least we'll have like a start going here. Okay. So today I think that I'll probably be streaming till like 10:30, 11 will be probably the latest that I'll be going for. So we'll kind of see how much we can get till then. All right, and let me make my Photoshop just a little bit smaller so I can see if anyone shows up in the chats. I know this is a relatively late stream on a Sunday, so who knows who all will show up. But I do have a fresh pot of coffee brewed so that hopefully I can be ready. All right, so we're going to draw Elizabeth's maid, and this is going to be, I kind of want to actually see the reference I have of her real quick. That'll be good just to kind of get in the flow of things again. So there's my thumbnail there. This is the shot we're going to be doing. That's Elizabeth's maid on the left, and then Elizabeth on the right, as well as her dog. And we'll have to see if I still have pictures of her dog on here, or if we're going to have to kind of pull those from another page. I try to kind of keep the layers from like previous ones, so I don't have to keep dragging the same artwork over and over again. But I am guessing that we might have to look up. Let me see if I can find some red Cocker Spaniel real quick. Okay. So I like this like more wild-looking Cocker Spaniel. Hold on, I'll grab this one. I think that's a pretty good one. Let's see if we can find another just to kind of. Let's see, walking. This is a shorter-eared cocker, but that at least gives us a little bit of a view. I kind of feel like we could probably find a better reference. Sorry, I know it's exciting. I'm looking at references, and usually I'll set this up on screen, but this should be a relatively quick exercise to look up. Let me just look up walking rather than walking on leash. Let's see what happens with that. Ah, there we go. That's a perfect shot. Okay. I think those are going to be the Cocker Spaniels that we need. So I'm going to move Elizabeth's maid and the Cocker Spaniel down here, like right above the thumbnail. And I'm going to go ahead and move the luggage down as well. We have all our ducks in a row. Okay. And now we're going to get to drawing our thumbnail. I can close out this. Okay, we're in good shape. Okay, so the maid is just going to be piled with stuff. And right now I'm just worried about drawing a decent version of her just with a pile of luggage under her head, under her chin, basically. But I also want her looking over to, okay, she's saying, yes, ma'am, everyone is asleep in this. Okay. This is like an undershot. And we're going to make that happen. So we'll just start with her head and kind of see how far we can get here. I want a lot of luggage too. Gary just joined us saying buenas noches. And Philip's joined us as well and said, hey, yo. How's it going, Philip? So we're working on page 19. It's going to be a stairwell scene. Pulling us back to the stairwell at 50 Wimple that we saw quite a few pages ago. But I think in this case, you know, we're going to see more of, quite a bit more of. So here we're going to just have a lot of luggage sort of piled pretty high. Trying to do it at like an angle, so maybe this will be one of those older school briefcases, kind of suitcase types. And I think this last one will be the one that we looked up cool references of. This is the big old trunk. And the goal here is to actually have her overloaded with stuff. One of the things I like about working digitally is that you can kind of work big and then shrink down. Like you don't have to be constrained by like the size of the page, or if you like started your drawing too large, you don't have to kind of start over, which is cool for like the way that I'm doing these roughs, where it's like a lot of the time, if you're working to constraints, like size constraints and stuff like that, you're going to start with kind of like more structural roughs first, and then kind of work from there and like perfect and perfect. But I like this for roughs in particular because I find that I'm a lot looser when I'm drawing more kind of organically, like I would from life. Like if I was drawing these people from life, I wouldn't be like starting with structural lines and stuff like that. Like it's a way I used to draw when I was really young. And then as I got better at life drawing, I actually found that if you're kind of loose and just pay attention to the contour lines of things, it can be like way more fun, and actually you can get a lot more accurate in your kind of drawing. But it requires like this weird kind of zone out. For me, this kind of drawing requires like really zoning in, and like zoning in is a weird way to put it, but it's not an inaccurate way. And then from there, it's like I'm like kind of visualizing it as if I'm seeing it in life, you know, and then sort of drawing what I see. I think that works pretty well, but it's a hard frame of mind to get into, whereas like the more kind of geometric, like structural way of like kind of building out characters is like a much more reliable method, you know, where you like start with roughs of your characters and like, you know, draw center lines and all of that stuff. Okay. But I do kind of like this method for roughs. Not necessarily for finals. I feel like maybe for finals you need to do a little bit more of that structural work. But the great thing is if you have roughs with this work done, then it's not quite as hard. There was like a bang outside that one of our dogs heard, and that has set them off on a warpath. Okay, so I think I have my made for this sequence, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And I have that part. Now I just need to kind of draw Elizabeth. I know I also had an Elizabeth, the costume that I wanted her in here. And I'm wondering if that's still here, or if that's like a layer I'm going to have to pull from. There it is. Okay, that's her costume. This is from like an old illustration about courtship that I think had the Brownings on it. And I think the illustration is either from the Victorian era, or it's like got definitely some resemblance to stuff from the Victorian era, because like there's something about the illustrations they did back then where everybody's feet were tiny. It's like I almost think, maybe Rob Liefeld was secretly a Victorian artist, and that's why he drew such tiny feet and hands on his figures. All right, here we go. Can't have a stream where you're talking about art without dissing on Rob Liefeld. All right, that's the dog I want kind of there. So the dog is going to be sort of peeking over. So I almost feel like the dog is going to be peeking over the step a little bit. He's going to have like he's definitely going to be very excited. Chris Kawagua was saying, "You leave poor Rob alone." I will agree with that statement, actually. I've said this multiple times on this show, but as much as I, as a younger artist, used to talk a lot of crap on Rob Liefeld, as I think most art students do, because once you start figuring out structure and anatomy and stuff, which, by the way, I'm doing rough, so my structure and anatomy is nothing to brag about. But the point being, like, you kind of have this moment where you're learning these basics and you start realizing like how much like these guys you grew up like reading just like totally kind of sucked. Like they didn't know what they were doing. But I will say, I know it's in fashion for people to talk. Well, it used to be in fashion, at least. There was an era where it was in fashion to talk crap about Rob Liefeld, and there were like entire blogs, which I totally looked at. They were very funny. That like showed, like Liefeld's art compared to like actual human anatomy, and you'd see like a chest and how it was like completely, like Captain America chest is like a notorious one. So anyhow, I know it's like popular for people to look at that and just be like, man, what a terrible artist and stuff like that. And I mean, first off, like the guy created Deadpool, and that's a pretty cool character. And then second off, he was like, what, 17 when he was doing a lot of that art? And it's like working professionally for Marvel. I mean, I wasn't that good at 17. And that's one of the defenses I always make of Rob Liefeld is like, I mean, talk as much crap as you want, but it's like, how many of us could have worked and maintained like a comic book schedule at like age 19 for Marvel Comics, like doing like a 24-page comics. I mean, and hitting your deadlines. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I don't think I was mature enough. And I definitely drew a lot worse than he did when I was his age, like his age when he was making those things. So this is going to be Elizabeth. She's sort of looking down. So anyhow, my point is, I actually think he gets too much hate from people sometimes, and I actually think Liefeld's pretty cool, and his style's got this like, I can at this point in my life, I can actually see an appeal to his style because it's very like, I don't know, it's just like fun. It feels like my imagination was when I was like, in junior high. And that's about the time that whole thing happened. So, okay. I don't know about the leash yet. That may not be the right spot for the leash. But I actually like this angle, and I think I'm going to go forward with it. And I should be leery about like crap talking somebody's anatomy when I'm getting into a rough, because that could get me into dangerous territories, especially because if you're, I think, doing a rough correctly, like not super concerned with like too much of the final details. You're just getting composition, lighting, kind of framing, that type of thing. Okay. And you guys will see why she's in like evening finery in this one. The truth will be revealed on this episode, this very live stream. Stay tuned. I think I've already told people, but still. I should build the suspense for people to stay tuned. So I'm kind of digging that, actually. I think she's going to need to be a little lower in frame. Ooh. Now, I guess to justify the people who talk crap on Liefeld, I mean, the dude is a millionaire. So, there's that. Like, he's crying all the way to the bank. And good for him. I mean, like, again, I think when I was 19, I had dreams of at some point in my life being a cartoonist, but I wasn't even at a point where I was like submitting art to like publishers or anything like that. And I mean, my ambitions like as an artist now aren't to like work for like Marvel Comics or whatever, but like, man, there was definitely an era where like, for me, especially as a young man, where I would have killed to work for Marvel Comics. I mean, it's Marvel Comics. I still think it's a cool thing to work for. Okay. Although it would be funny if you looked at like all of Liefeld's his art training stuff, and it's like all just Victorian era anatomy. And you're like, oh, that explains so much. Okay, let's see here. Okay, this is a wall. That's one thing we established about this stairwell before. This stairwell over here actually continues going up. So we established that before on previous pages as well. And there are like portraits, and this is going to be a nighttime shot. But there's going to be like these giant kind of old-timey Victorian portraits, which will be really fun. I'm just setting myself up for when the final happens. I want to punch rough draft Josh. So I'll be like, oh, that's great. On a comic that you need 200 pages on, you decided to do a stairwell lined with old Victorian portraits that you have to draw over and over again. But again, I think this might be the last time I have to draw 50 Wimpole. At least for the time being, for the next whatever amount of pages. Okay, guys, we're getting closer. This is going to definitely be like a darker, I'm just going to pause on the word darker as I'm drawing. Oh, it's going to be a darker setting. Like it'll be like late at night because they're sneaking out. And you'll find out why if you stay tuned. Stay tuned to find out what's Elizabeth doing, sneaking out with Watt. Or sorry, not Watt. Watt is her kid, I think. Flush. Sorry, her dog Flush. Her maid. Luggage. What could possibly be occurring here, you guys? The other thing that I have forgotten to account for here, and this is where it's beautiful that this is a rough, is I have completely forgotten to account for the text, which is a... See, that's Rob Liefeld getting revenge in the background. He's like, oh yeah? You think I don't know anatomy? Well, you don't know how to arrange a panel, dude. Boom. Take that, Kemble. Liefeld, 10 points. Kemble, 0. Yeah, that's true. It's a good point, Rob. I'm actually kind of curious to hear, like, so what do you guys think in the chats? Like, what do you guys think about Liefeld, all that business? Do you feel like he gets too much grief? I do tend to think like people like hating stuff. I even get a kick out of it sometimes, just like crap talking things. Sometimes it's fun, you know. But it's a lot easier than kind of like talking things up that you love, right? Because it's easier for us to tear things down than to I will say though that Captain America, I'm sorry, it is a classic. Anyhow, what do you guys think about Liefeld? All right, I think we've got, okay, so she's supposed to be saying, are you sure he went to bed? Okay. We need to rethink this by having the, are you sure he went to bed? And pay attention to my thumbnail where I had allotted for that space. Are you sure he went to bed? Gary said, I think he's a mediocre talent that hit the lottery. So good for him, I guess. Does he deserve it? No. Do other people? Yes. You know, it's weird though, because like I said, there's some things. I mean, he definitely hit the lottery for sure. I would agree with that. But I mean, it is one of those weird things where it was also the lottery of time, right? Because there was something about the style of what he was doing that was just like super popular to the point where like a lot of the old hat guys were like trying to draw like they couldn't draw because his style became really popular. And so like they're like suddenly like, oh my gosh, I have to like add 50 pockets to things and start hiding people's legs. I mean, he was there was some luck there, but there was also like he was definitely in touch with a zeitgeist of sorts, you know. And like weirdly enough, I know this is like a totally corny thing to say, but it's like, who am I to judge? Like again, at 19, dude, yes, man, everyone is asleep. But yes, he was pretty bad. But it kind of reminds me of like when I was younger, I used to get really mad about. I'm sure I've talked about this on stream before, and if I have like too much, like feel free to let me know, and I'll change topics as best I can. But like I used to really hate Pollock, like the painter. Um, okay. And I feel like as a young man, it just used to make me really mad. Like I just look at it and be like, he's just splatting paint and getting paid like millions of dollars, and it's a complete scam. It's like the emperor's new clothes. And I used to have this whole rant about it and just get really upset about it. And then like as I've gotten older, I've been like, I don't know, I like what he was doing. And honestly, if you look at a lot of the paintings that were coming out when like Pollock just came along and was like splatting paint and being all punk rock about stuff, like it was almost like necessary what he did. Like it's like stuff was so boring before Pollock. Um, like modernism had taken hold, so like everybody was doing these like kind of flat, boring things, and then because of Pollock, you have like artists like Kandinsky come around and do like jazzy interpretations of modern art, and you have like Warhol come along and be like, nah, we're gonna do like commercial art that's like pop art that's like this weird thing, and I'm not even gonna do half the art. I'm just gonna have like 5 people do it at my like workshop, you know, like Santa, but like for art. Um, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying like some cool stuff came out of Pollock, and then if you look at Pollock's splatter form stuff, it's like it's funny. There's always like art students including myself, right, who always do one project. It's like a dig at Pollock, where you're like, haha, see how easy it is, and it's not. Like you try to make his stuff, and then you start realizing like the just sheer chaotic beauty of what he was doing. So I'm like a big fan of his now, and it's like it took me years to come over that, like to get over like my kind of hatred of that art. And all it really took was me just stepping outside of myself and being like, yeah, I mean, why am I mad? So I'm mad because it's easy and the guy's making money. And then the more I looked into it, I'm like, well, it's kind of easy, but it's kind of not. Um, Yeah, I mean, there's still really valid criticisms of Pollock. Like a lot of people, you know, make the point that he wasn't the first splatter form artist. I guess there were quite a few women doing it, but because they were women, and you know, Greenberg, the critic that at the time who was like sort of had picked Pollock as like his next like kind of protege or whatever, had just overlooked these women that had been doing it for years and just went to like Pollock because he's like, well, he's a man, so he must know what he's doing. Like, there's definitely some misogyny and kind of lameness and like some of the historical record of it. I know there's like complexity to it, but my point is, I'm just saying it's just surprising to me how like stuff I used to, even Liefeld is another one of those ones that just used to get me irate, and I just get less and less irate because I'm kind of like of the opinion like, I mean, there's always better artists doing things, but then there's also a lot of better artists than Pollock who made like stuff that is like utterly not worth looking at. Like it's just boring, you know? And like they're technically like way better artists, but it's just they just make like dull, boring stuff. So like I don't know if I'd rather look at like a splatter just mess on a canvas or look at like somebody's technically proficient painting of a duck that looks like everybody else's painting of a duck. I don't know. I'm rambling. Um, Philip was saying sometimes make fun a little bit. He's working. He's happy doing what he's doing. He's making good money, and in the long run, he's still a better artist than I am. I think that was Philip on Rob Liefeld. Yeah, well, here's the thing. Like, he's a better artist than I was. I don't know how much he's progressed. I haven't really followed his career. I will say this too. Another thing that changed my opinion of Liefeld was just his own public. Maybe it's BS or something, but it's like he has a very Shatner-esque ownership of like the corniness of his art and kind of leans into it. And like, I can't not respect that. Like, if somebody's getting clowned on and they lean into it, they're like, yeah, you're right. You know what? I do draw a lot of pockets. I do draw like tiny hands. I can't draw a chest, you know, like that kind of thing. I don't know. I feel like at least he's doing that. Let's see. Chris said, I think it's impressive when a character you make has such longevity like Deadpool. Yeah, that's the other thing about, like I was saying about Liefeld. You also got to give him credit for, like, he had somehow like just touched that like pulse of like the time, like with like really like all his characters, like, you know, I think the X-Force stuff, all that stuff was like, it was just like, it somehow, sorry, it was his was X-Force. Somehow he just touched this like idea that was big at the time. He drew guns like 50 times as big, and like they were weird, and I don't know, like for a junior high kid, I think that was really exciting to see. Felt like something new, you know. Gary said, if you make a Pollock Liefeld comparison, I might have a stroke, and that'll be on you. I'm not saying they're at all remotely in the same league, because I think Pollock was actually a really good artist. I will still not to this day say that Liefeld is a good artist. But I guess I'm just saying, like, I came around on my thinking of both of them in different ways. Like with Pollock, I just actually grew to appreciate and see what he was doing. And I actually don't think it's like an Emperor's New Clothes thing. I think it's like a punk rock thing. And I love it. Frank said Warhol was a factory mogul. And then he said, controlled chaos. Men are much better at art than women. Don't tell Anna I said that, by the way. How dare you have me read that, Frank? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, there was an era where they used to think that. And it's so weird. Like, that used to be pervasive in illustration, too, which is the weirdest thing, because illustration has such a long history of just women just dominating. Like the kids' books territory is a perfect example, where it's like the best kids' book artists of the last like 300 years have mostly been women. And so it's like, it's just shocking to me. Or like even animation, where you have people like Mary Blair just owning every like background artist and concept artist at Disney. Like there was nobody comparable to her, to the point where like Disney would like pay her to just come down and like do a mural, and he'd pay her like 4 years worth of salary just to do that. And then there's animators that got all like, well, we're men and those women, blah blah blah. It's like that. I don't understand the place for misogyny in animation and illustration in particular, just because they've been fields that have been carried by women. Anyhow. And then, of course, Frank said, just kidding. Anna is a fantastic artist and better than most men whose art I've seen, mine included. Yeah, I mean, I can't say that men are better than women at art at all, because my wife is a million times better at drawing than I am. But I mean, even before that, I knew that, you know. Let's see here. This is where I'm going to sound all corny and just be like, wouldn't it be cool to be in a world where just people make art? Gary said, for the record, I don't have any emotional reaction to Liefeld. Like, I'm not online ranting about him, but I'm an ability snob and naive idealistic about the best people getting work. Yeah, I kind of am too. But then it's weird because it's like I'm not the best people, you know? But I get you. I mean, I don't. I think if I had like a multi-million-dollar company or something, I don't know if I'd be like hiring Liefeld, you know? Okay. But also, honestly, like I'm more of an indie guy anyway. I will say that that is one cool thing about Liefeld too. Is from what I recall, I think like currently, like I think he's been hiring a bunch of indie guys that are just incredible artists and having them do kind of like their take on different characters of his, and I think that's cool. That he's kind of open to like making making pathways for other artists to kind of have that type of thing. Frank put it really well. I strive to be the next Liefeld. If he can make a living with his art, then there's hope for me. Well, I mean, there is something to be said for that too. Like, I mean, anyone who can make it in this weird hustle that we all have to do. But yes, there are definitely. I mean, I still will chuckle if I see like those collections of Liefeld's um, funny funny anatomical errors. Okay. Thought I had the dog. Thought I had found more of the dog. Maybe not, but I feel like maybe it was supposed to be 3 up. There's one, but I thought there was. Yep, that's closer. Yep, there it is. Okay. I was like, I knew I had found a better version of the dog. Okay, so I'm going to have. Now we're going to do panel 2. Then we're going to have the maid again, but this time it's like a little bit further down the stairwell. Okay. And let's get the maid here. There we go. And I have plenty of reference for the luggage right there. So, okay. So now we're working on this. Oh, Gary, I watched about like 40 minutes of your stream, and I'm gonna watch probably the rest maybe tonight before I go to sleep. But it was cool. Fun. It's always fun to see Ronnie on a stream too. I really like Ronnie. I think he's just just an overall good human being. But also he always has like a really interesting take on things. And I think I probably would agree with like what he was saying about he was talking about horror on there, how like horror that kind of shows too much is just like not really his cup of tea. And I agree with him on that a lot. It's definitely one of those things I've never really. Well, I mean, occasionally I can get into like really corny, over the top, gory horror, but it's like for me it has to be like Sam Raimi level, just ridiculous ones. And I was really excited, Gary, to hear you mention "Drag Me to Hell." That was awesome because I loved that movie so much when it came out, and I agree. I feel like not a lot of people paid a lot of attention to that, and it was just very fun, rainy goodness. And I remember the direction. I think from what I recall, the art direction in that was really cool. Anyhow, just backing you up on that is all I'm saying. I haven't seen it in a while, though. I should rewatch it. Maybe I'll rewatch it and be like, why did I like that movie? But that used to be one that I would watch quite often, actually. I really enjoyed that when it came out. Okay. So this is going to be kind of more above head. And I'm starting to do the overly sketchy thing. Like I was saying about this style of rough that I like to do, it's like you kind of have to be in a flow where you're almost. This is the way I do life drawing a lot too, where it's like I find that I draw a ton better when I'm not overly noodling or like overly like working on structure or anything like that. Like I'm just kind of in the flow. I find that I work a lot better if I'm just kind of drawing it as if I am seeing it and confidently, confident lines that aren't like this. You know, if I'm drawing like this, I'm probably in a good spot. But right now I'm like half there, but I'm probably being a little too tight. If you guys watch these streams and I'm doing drawings and I'm saying, oh, I'm being too tight, it's like that's usually what I'm talking about. Where in theory, I should be nice and loose on the line art, where it's just a confident line. One solid line. I don't need to like noodle like 50, versions of something to get it. 50 lines doesn't make itself a good line. And these are roughs, so they should stay relatively loose. Otherwise, I've defeated the purpose. Okay. Okay, so she's going to have her body there, so we'll see. Okay. Oh, Frank said, I just got a notification that Linkara is doing a live stream. He famously makes fun of Liefeld. Like Ronnie, he's good people. Nice. That's cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean, you can't not make fun of it. Like, I guess I'm not saying like people shouldn't make fun of Liefeld. I guess I'm just saying like when they do, just do it with the knowledge. Like again, like where were you at when you were 17? You know, that's what I have to think about. Where I'm like, okay, when I was 17 though, could I have done like a 24-page comic every month, even if I was getting like millions to do it? You know, and also would I have done a dumb Levi's commercial? For sure, I would have. I'm kind of glad. I don't know. I'm glad I didn't get super famous then, because I think the other thing is like, would I have ever gotten better? Because like when you have sales numbers in front of you, right? And let's say like you're Liefeld, right? And you're like, man, I don't know about this Captain America chest. And then suddenly the sales numbers come in, and it's like it sold millions of copies. You're like, I don't know, whatever. I guess I'm a pretty awesome artist. You're getting like fan mail, all that stuff. I'm imagining that goes to your head. It's got to be like equivalent to being like a child actor or something. It's like it'd be hard to like kind of hone your craft when you have everyone around you. I'm being overly empathetic about the guy, probably. Gary said, "Drag me to hell forever." People sleep on it. Yeah, I agree. I think Maya took that literally and was like, "You want Josh to drag you to hell?" It does kind of sound funny. All right, so let's see here. Yep, okay, here's our pup. Got our dog. Dog's over here. Okay. I want to kind of keep the angle there in play as well. Okay, so we got our nurse. From a different view, we're going a little overhead here. Okay. Elizabeth is, where's my thumbnail? Oh man. I had a moment there of like, what did I do with my thumbnail? I need to see that too. Okay, let's check out. Okay, now I'm seeing where I'm going. All right, so we got this. We're gonna do, make sure we're saving. Frank said we should make a game, things artists say that sound sexual. That's a horrible game because everything artists say sounds sexual. It's, you know, in junior high, I used to do that with everything, I think, like as a junior high kid, where somebody would be like, all right, you guys, let's get out your pencils and we're going to do some homework. And I'm like, oh, they said do some. Like the stupidest. I don't know. I was a very obnoxious. I think most junior high boys are terrible human beings. Were you guys awful in junior high, or were you like well-behaved gentlemen? Now is where you should just pretend you were a well-behaved gentleman and be like, I don't know what you're talking about, Josh. I was a perfectly behaved kid. I didn't make stupid jokes or laugh at things that sounded. Okay. She's actually saying, okay, that actually works. Okay. Okay. Need to be loose with this drawing. It's an absolute necessity here. Which arm was she using? Okay, good. She's using her right arm. That's good to know. No, she's using her left arm. But her right is holding the leash. Got it. Okay. Being too tight again with my line. Okay. I think I'm going to have her holding. Okay. We're going to have her holding her leash, holding the leash of Flush. Now that I think about it, I have no idea if Flush is a boy dog or a girl dog. I'm guessing actually probably a boy, but I should ask my sister about that because I have no idea, honestly. And that might become important to know at some point in the story since I'm going to be drawing this dog for probably. This dog is an important character in the Browning's story, which is kind of fun that it is. You know? Okay, So we have the leash, and here is going to be the arm holding the leash. Speaking of Liefeld there, it's a Liefeld level dislocation of the arm I just did. Not forgivable. At that point, it's like that's where Gary's just like, I saw that arm dislocation you drew, unsubscribe. Frank was saying, I admire how he started his own business, got into the business pretty young, and created some characters that are still fan favorites, but he isn't without flaws. The Levi's commercial was funny and cool. Well, here's the thing about the Levi's commercial. Which one of you, again, at like 19, is going to turn down, like, what was it, Spike Lee or something? Like, coming to you and being like, you're the coolest person in comics. We'd like to have you wear our blue jeans for a commercial, and here's some money to do it. I mean, you'd do it. We all would have done it and then had to live it down later on. At least for me, I don't know, maybe I'm just like a really bad example because I think I was a really egotistical, like, there's this weird thing I think with people when they're like 19, where it's like you're both full of anxiety and insecurity and also probably the most egotistical you'll ever be in your life. Because like somehow you're going to do everything better than every adult ever and possibly be like a famous poet or something, like even though you're, at least for me at the time, I wasn't doing anything worthy of being like a famous poet who's going to change the world or something. But I think at that point in my life, I probably thought like, yeah, that's a possibility. It's definitely something I could be because I'm an artist, Okay, flush is going to be working. I'm just saying like there's something unique about like young people in like their late teens, early 20s, where you're just kind of like you're full of like pride where you shouldn't have it, but also a bunch of insecurities where you shouldn't have it because like you're 19 or you're early 20s. Like, what do you expect? Like, you're not going to have like a mass career. Most people aren't going to have mass careers at that point in their life, But it's like this weird thing. Okay. Enough of this chatter. We're going to do the rest of this. Yeah, actually, I'm kind of digging this and how it's coming out. I don't know what you guys think, but I think we're making some progress here. Got some dogs drawn. Got some Elizabeth Barrett Browning going. Okay. Now let's get our thumbnail and make sure we're kind of getting close to that. Hey, that's pretty good, and it's got some momentum. I think she should be. Yeah, I kind of like that pairing for the design. We have a Corey Kerr saying, hey, people are here. I love it. Gary said unsubscribed and blocked. I think he was referring, because Frank was saying, wait, who would you block? Spike Lee? I think he was, I think he was referring to, to me drawing like a really bad arm and having to kind of dislocate it and then having to correct it. And about 5 minutes after I had talked a little bit of crap about Rob Liefeld. You know what it is? It's like I have an okay understanding of perspective, but I feel like the second I get cocky about, like if I got really cocky about perspective and then I had like, we had another stream with like David Chelsea on, I would just have no standing to even talk to the guy because I just like, I suck at perspective comparatively, you know? But I feel like that would be exactly what would happen if I got really cocky about, like if I started bragging about perspective or something. Then I'd have somebody who really knows perspective come and I'd be like, oh crap, what did I get myself into? You know? Humility goes a long way. And you guys, I'm like the humblest of all the humble people in the world. Like, I'm so humble that like humble people everywhere are like, how are you so humble? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just really humble, you know? Did that effectively? Yeah, I'm so humble I can't even like finish a sentence about being humble because it's just it just feels too much like bragging, you know what I mean? In fact, if I talk like it's gonna sound really smart, so I can't talk. I just have to be really quiet all the time because I'm really humble, you know what I'm saying? Is my humble brag working, you guys? Is it did that come across convincingly? I have to look at this stairwell again. How's it going, Corey Kerr? Something about the way I just said that cracks me up. I'm so humble I crack myself up. More irony, Rob Liefeld just added an Instagram story. Nice. Corey said, doing all right. That's good. That's good. That is... Okay, she's saying something here. So I should not make the mistake I made 5 seconds ago. Okay. I can do a little better than that and say what the text is before we go ahead and hone it in. Oh, Wilson. My heart, oh, my heart is in my throat. Really amazing writing there, you guys. Just nothing sloppy about that at all. I think we have to move this down. Okay, yeah, let's merge down. There we go. Okay. There we go. We're going to do that with our portraits. We're going to be lining the walls. Different people, different portraits. And different people, different portraits. And definitely going to have the darker roof. All right. Add some shading, and then we're going to do probably our first trailer, our first book trailer. This might be a stream, unlike the ones this morning, where we get 2 trailers at some point. I feel like I was still kind of recovering a little bit from being sick, and so I could do like a 1-hour stream, and then I'm like, okay, I got to nap or something. Or eat. I feel like when I'm not sick, it'll be like a 10-hour stream, or it's like 4 in the morning and we're talking. All right, here we go, guys. I love it. Frank said, I'm so humble and meek, and possessing such heavenly qualities makes me proud. And maybe someday you will see that you could get to be as spiritual as me. Yep, definitely. Definitely. I would say, yeah, definitely the most, just being really humble, I'd say probably the most humble of all the humble people. Okay, guys, all that goofiness aside, so we have our first 2 sections of the thumbnails coming along. It's pretty good. They're sneaking out. So Elizabeth and her maid Wilson is dragging a crap load of luggage. The next shot is going to be a little comical, I'm hoping, like a little bit slapstick. And that's also going to act as like part of the Z pattern that you use on a page to kind of lead the eye through. So the stairwell will be like running from like the top right to the bottom left. And that'll lead us down to the bottom, which will reference the page that we did prior, which we might pull open so we don't have to redraw a lot of that front of the building, because it's going to be a front shot of the building with a carriage pulling in front of it. And the words clatter, clatter. But right now, what we're going to do is put on a trailer for my book that is coming out on June 7th. And if you guys haven't pre-ordered it or asked your local bookstore to pre-order it, what are you doing? Get out there, get on that before it's too late. Okay, guys. Why are they sneaking out? We'll find out in a second. Okay, stay tuned. Speak clearly, it seems that only in dreams can we be these things we've seen and walk around. At the seams. I know, it says May. but it's June 7th. Trust me, believe me. But I will tell you, the books are printed and they're beautiful. I've pointed this out before, but like for book nerds, it's hard to see, but you see how that's like bowing, like like right at the there it is. You can have to see the little like loops. There's like 4 of them. Almost like 4 little mini comics in there. That is signatures. And when you see like even like a softback book that's printed with like signatures, like that's high quality, like really very high quality offset printing. It's probably this is gonna be sound cocky or whatever, but hey, I didn't do the printing. Graphic Mundi is the company that put the money into printing this, and that's probably one of the prettiest printed soft covers I've ever done, including like design annuals and stuff. I've had stuff in it. It's really, really quite beautiful. So make sure you get one before they sell out. I don't know. They're pre-order it. I don't know if they're going to sell out. That's why I want you guys to pre-order it, because in reality, let's just try to make Graphic Mundi feel like it wasn't a mistake publishing me. Okay. Nice. And then Frank said my birthday is in June, so get Jacob's apartment in my honor. Hey, that's a good point. My birthday is in a week. So as a birthday present, get Jacob's apartment. Pre-order it. Go to your local bookstore and tell them to carry Jacob's apartment. It's distroed by diamonds, so that's exciting times. Enough about Jacob's apartment now. We got to get into drawing some roughs. I love this coffee mug. It's like really corny. It's got the old school Mickey. I don't know if I've mentioned that. Like I really love the black and white era, like Silly Symphonies era of like Disney. I'm a nerd for that stuff. I always get the guy's name wrong, but it's like Eb Iwerks or whatever, the guy who was doing a lot of those early like Steamboat Willie and Plane Crazy. Like they're just such good cartoons. I will tell you though, like Mickey was like not a nice mouse. He was a very cantankerous fellow. Okay, I want to hear, because we got a lot of people watching and in chats. What is everybody working on? Let me know in the chats. And if you're working on something and like stopping and pausing to like type in the chats is going to cause you delays on your project, then don't let me know. But I am curious. Like I hope everybody's making really good progress on their artworks. So here I'm going to try to see my rough. I'm trying to match like the kind of arch of the stairwell from the previous page that kind of showed it. But also I want it to like almost be like you have like, this is going to be like a Wes Anderson cutout kind of vibe. I want to do a lot of that because some of that's like frowned upon, like in comics that are done the Marvel way, like don't do a direct side view. But I feel like artistically you can really do some cool stuff with like flattening things out and like doing like a side view, like it's like a dollhouse or something, you know? That can be really cool. Gary said still working on page 14. Good on you, Gary. I'm very excited about Dinosaurs versus Marsbots. You know, there were so many good conversations on your stream. Gary was talking about like those moments when we're doing cartooning, and this one resonated with me a lot.
where it's like, you know, when you're like a good example, like this project, or for Gary, I think it's Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots, like the current version he's working on. Where it's like it can be like you have these moments, like especially if you look at your older stuff, where you kind of feel like proud of your older stuff, but also you feel like overwhelmed. Like, how did I? Not in like a cocky way, but like in a pragmatic way, where you're just like, how did I do this? Like, how did I? Like, this was a crap load of work. Like, how did I actually get this thing done? And then you'll, you know, equally, like for me, if I have a moment where I like start realizing like the quantity, the sheer just quantity of art that I have to do to finish this book, it just like it can be like, if I were to focus on it too much, I think I'd just like almost maybe give up, you know, because it's just like a lot. It's a lot to think about. Yeah, anyhow, so Gary was talking about that kind of phenomenon and asking if other artists have it, and man, that hit home, because I definitely have that, especially on this project, where it's just like, man, I have to be just like one foot in front of the other, because if I'm not, I will derail entirely. And you know, and honestly, I've experienced that in the workplace too, where it's like, you know, there's times where you're like, you know, you have a crazy client, not a crazy client, but maybe it's just like a crazy deadline from a client. It's like a really important deadline, and you just have no idea how you're going to do it. And then you just start carving away at it, and then the next thing you know, like you've done this impossible thing, you know. But it never feels like it's possible. And if you stop to think about it too much, like sometimes, like I mean, you have to stop enough to back plan it, but it's like, you know, like kind of do things like what I'm doing here with this project, where it's like, okay, I definitely am gonna have to um, try to not give too much perspective here, though. Okay, so you know, like what I'm doing here, where it's like you do roughs and you iterate it out, but it's like at the end of the day, you can't think too much about it, because if you do, like you aren't going to get it done. You'll just kind of fold and be like, oh crap, like because graphic novels themselves, honestly, almost all sequential work, but graphic novels I think have a special place um, in that realm of just sheer terror. Okay, I don't like the framing of this, because this could get much larger, which would be good. But I had to work out that stairwell. Cool. Oh my gosh, I did that on the thumbnail page. But anyhow, yeah, so I related to that a lot as a topic. I don't know exactly where I'm going with that, but I definitely have had like that, especially with this project, where it's like I just have to do one foot in front of the other. If I think about it too much, I'll freak out. Corey said, I love doing comic things that are against the rules. Well, like the thing I love about like looking at, I mean, when we were doing like the indie review show too, I really enjoyed this element of it, was like looking at like a lot of the earlier comics where there were no rules. Or you look at like Crazy Cat pages, or like, you know, Little Nemo pages, and you realize like the rules are stupid. Like a lot of the rules are stupid. Um, that's one of the things that broke uh, um, the creator of Calvin and Hobbes. Like he was doing just kind of the formula of like how to do paneling and stuff like that, and then he opened up Crazy Cat pages and was like, wait, what have I been doing this whole time? Like I don't need to do the formula. And that's where he started doing like the really experimental Sunday stuff that like all of us loved as kids, you know. A lot of that was just looking at like the guys that were doing it before there were rules and being like, wait a minute, some of these rules are really dumb. Okay. So I think it's good to know the rules, but yeah, like, yeah, break the rules. Just break them knowledgeably, right? I think quite often people are unconsciously breaking the rules, and that can be dangerous, right? Or you don't know there are rules you're breaking. Sometimes that can be a problem. But I mean, I've seen, especially the cartoon modern movement, where they like tangents, huge rule in art, right? Really shouldn't have tangents. And in general, that's a really good rule, right? But then cartoon modern, like the whole style is playing off of tangents, where they'll take like these crazy like just angles you shouldn't have like a chair, or just like again like breaking all the rules of perspective too, where they'll skew perspective, but they're doing it for design sensibility, so they're consciously doing it to a point where they even play with it, you know. But if you look at like, you know, like Mr. Magoo and like that era of the way they would kind of skew things, like so they'd show like a tabletop, but you'd see like the top like this, but then like you'd see the side like flat, and then you'd see like maybe the table legs would have like a swirl or something. Um, and you know, whereas in perspective, like that would actually be here. They're like, no, I'm gonna have like this flat, and then maybe I'm gonna have like a plant that's on top of the table, and that'll be like equally, maybe that's going to have, just break all the rules, like, and maybe I'll even have, yeah, there we go, we've got a tangent, so maybe we'll even have that be like a tangent with the table. I'm just showing like a really bad example, but my point is, you know, that like that's one of the coolest things about that style is like the fact that they'd intentionally break the rules. But like when you looked at their art, you didn't think like, oh, these guys don't know the rules. You'd be like, no, no, no. They're like, they know what they're doing, you know. And I think a lot of those guys who started the cartoon modern thing were very cognizant of what they were doing. Okay. I want this to be really exaggerated here, where that might be too exaggerated. That's too exaggerated. Let's see here. Just want like, I liked how I roughed it. That was pretty good. So it'll be like more like this. So she's going to be, there we go. So I like the idea of the maid kind of exaggeratedly with this pile of stuff on the stoop. Hey, wasn't that like a bit that I was joking about like on the stream in the past? For saying the word on the stoop sounds like somebody's been hitting the sauce. Okay. Now we're going to have the dog and Elizabeth. Whoa. Gary said the power of daily effort and patience culminating in something big is pretty wild and almost magical, that if you're doing it feels hard to wrap your brain around in hindsight. Yeah, exactly. It's like it's such an overwhelming thing to wrap your brain around that it's almost best to just not think about it. For me, at least, I feel like if I think about it, it ruins the magic a little bit. Okay, so Elizabeth's gonna be here and kind of sneaking. Where's my thumbnail? Okay, I like that. So she's gonna be like sneaking. Do Elizabeth here. She's going to be kind of sneaking forward. Oh, with the dog. The dog. Okay. She'll have her dog leash there. And then I love the idea of this being kind of a, again, just like a almost slapstick panel. For it to be truly slapstick, she probably needs this hand back. So they're also, we're not just doing this for slapstick. This is just to show that they're sneaking out. Okay, so I like that gesture. And I think I'll move her up a little bit. And then we're going to have the dog here. It's a cocker, so. Okay. We're getting there, guys. So we have some drama going on the stairwell. I think this is definitely going to need to be like more of a kind of. Oh, okay, I see. Never mind. The stairwell is actually supposed to be more of like a big block with one of those things on top of it. Okay. And then I think that we had on the previous one at this point on the stairwell, there are also old paintings. You have to realize this is Victorian era, right? These kind of crazy portraits of family and people from generations. And they had strange hangers back then. It's like almost like gallery frames, but they didn't hide the hangers behind the painting. So you'd very often see the sort of mechanics of what was hanging the portrait. This is starting to look like a Scooby-Doo panel, which makes me really excited. There's nothing wrong with the Scooby-Doo panel. In fact, every once in a while, a good old Scooby-Doo panel could be what we need in life. Corey said a lot of the rules are dumbed down versions of a higher understanding of compositional principles and understanding of visual perception. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's kind of like, so there's like rules to music too, right? Like chords and chord progressions and stuff like that. But all that is like ways to get people to start understanding theory. But like the neat thing about theory is like it's theory, and at the end of the day, it's like somebody sat down with like a guitar or a piano and like banged some keys and was like, or like tweak, like, you know, plucked some strings and realized like these strings sound really good at this frequency, and like these strings don't sound good with these other ones. Like if I hold this note, it doesn't sound as good with this note. But it's kind of like that's what it's based on. So there's ways that you can make like a discordant chord sound amazing, you know, and there's ways you can make like harmonic chords sound terrible. And also stuff that's like too perfectly played. I'm actually kind of curious about that. Gary might be able to chime in on that if he's still in the chat, but because he is, I believe, dating a person who's a member of one of the bigger kind of orchestras. But it's like, from my understanding, I think even in orchestras and stuff, there's a way of like playing that's like too cold and calculated and perfect, and it's missing emotion. And I feel like when somebody's like playing, I don't know, like violin or something, you have to kind of put some heart into it for it to have like resonance and emotion. Like if you play it too calculated and well, it can almost like not be good. So it's like there's that, when you're learning how to kind of get that structure, learn how to do it perfectly, and then you got to kind of take that and put some heart into it and rough it up. Frank dropped his Etsy and said he's going to get some sleep. Have a good night, Frank. And you guys should definitely check out Frank's Etsy. There's some cool stuff there, guys. Let's see here. Okay, so we also know there's going to be like the door to 50 wimple is going to be right about here. And I know that I might center this more to the page. We'll see. I kind of like that it's off center though. That's pretty cool. Not sure what we'll do with that though. It might be fun to actually do a cutaway. That might be nuts. We'll see if that works. So here's the circular door that we've all grown to love. I think this is actually a smaller archway that happens here where it's this 50 backwards. Okay. And I know there's a window here. Okay. So I am kind of thinking, okay, first let's merge this down. And then let's see what we can do to kind of make this work even better. I almost don't think we need the floor. So that's going to help. I think I want to center it more. Whoa. I want to center this more. And that's going to help as well. And then this is going to have the window. going on here. Okay. So this is going to have the window. There's a window on the outside. And I believe it's like a 3-pane. Okay. And I do like the idea of this being kind of there too. That's going to be the entryway to like the kitchen. And we'll have some kitchen suggestions here. Maybe some pots and pans or something. Okay. All right, you guys, we're getting there. We are getting there. I'm actually pretty excited with how this page is coming out. I think it's kind of fun. We'll have to see if it retains its funness. It's supposed to be nighttime too, and they are sneaking out. Like sneaky sneaks. Gary said, she's not here to ask, but she said sometimes auditions are frustrating because you can tell they're looking for something that blends with the symphony to the point of being unremarkable. Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense, where you kind of would sort of have like that, like you need people who can kind of hit their marks and not be like having too much heart. Because if it's like, let's say it's like you have 12 violins or something, and every violinist is like putting their heart into it a little, it might actually sound like chaos at that point. So I guess there are some forms of music where like precision and timing and stuff like that might actually be better. But I think that would become less and less important, like the smaller the group. Like if you have like a quartet of like 3 or like maybe it's 10, you know, different instruments, like that's where, you know, I would think like you really do need some like guts and heart, you know, in what you're doing. All right, that's interesting though. I hadn't thought of it from that angle. Okay, so this is a good breaking point for page 19. We're about to go into panel 20. Although, you know what? Before I was gonna play another trailer, but before we kind of go there, let's see if I can find. Let's see if we can pull up the page that we did earlier. That was like a full page that had the building in the background. I think it was. Oh my gosh, I completely lucked out. That was page 16. And we are opening it. And I think for page 16 to work, that actually might work really well. Okay. So page 16, it looks like there's, okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and merge this down. And we're going to copy copy page 16 and paste it here. Oh, there's elements on page 16 that aren't all on that same flattened area. Aha! I think that was it. Okay, that's the one spot we need. Okay. Here's where things are going to get really weird, because I do want to borrow from those from the previous work so that it's consistent too. So we're going to turn the opacity down here, and we're going to do some modifications. You must modify this. Okay, so let's see here. First thing, cool. Okay, that was easy peasy. That's the official term for it, you guys. And we're going to get rid of this kid. We're not going to need the kid. And we're just going to see how much of this aligns where we can do. Okay. There is one other thing that I wanted to look at, which was the building front. Didn't we have the building front too? There it is. Here's our building front that we can use. Yeah, Gary was saying, I think smaller things, solos, quartets, chamber music stuff, lets those sort of artists show off and do more. Yeah, exactly. Or just like those, you know, I guess like, if you're in an orchestra long enough, like they probably do have like their one or two standouts that they really want to be like, you know, you're going to do your crazy, this is your like show off moment, you know. Let's see here. That's an interesting take on it, though. Okay, so we're going to do, right here is going to be the middle part where we're seeing a little bit of that window. And this is going to go all the way up to here. It's going to be the, got some kind of moments. There's a window here. Gary said, taking a break to load the dishwasher. Back if you're still here. Nicely done, Gary. Okay, so this is going to be the, we're just doing the filler of the building so we can kind of have a rough idea of how that's going to look. Okay. Okay, you guys, we're close. We're very close. Now we just need to have, let me look at the thumbnail again. And just to make this easier with the thumbnail, we'll go ahead and make it a thumbnail we can see. That might be good. So I'll merge this down. Retitle this as thumb. Not thumb. Okay. So all we have left to do is our clattering carriage. Woo! Okay. I think we can find a carriage. I think we can get there. I believe. I believe we had to look up a bunch of carriages already. So let's go see what we've got in our past here. I think page is like 6. Page 6 we had to look up a carriage. And page 7 as well. I think it was page 7 where we had to look up a carriage. So let's see if we can find said carriage, or if we have to kind of find different thing. Where's the carriage? We might have to go even further back. Okay, this one does not have a carriage as a reference. It's crazy. Oh, there it is, cab. All right, so we're going to use this cab because this is going to be one of those too. This is going to be a more pricey carriage. I'm going to look up, okay, I'm going to do a quick search and see if we can find a better Victorian cab real quick. Victorian cab, 1840s cab. I sort of like the idea of it being better than a cab, though. So let's just say carriage. Aha! I have a few options that are directly there, and I have to kind of remember that the streets are different there. So the way that I had him pick up, let me see. So I had the cab kind of arrive. Okay, so he needs to be facing to the right. Okay, that's good. That's good. London. See if we can find like a really good. I usually try to kind of share this too. I wonder if I can without giving away too much here. So there we go. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of what I'm looking at right now. I'm trying to find a cab. And we need to remember the clatters too, okay? But those will probably be like a last minute thing. I want to find a good cab because I don't think we have to redraw this cab more than once. I want it to be a little bit like the one that dropped off her father on page 7. But I want it to be more like a discrete nighttime cab. You know what? I'm going to use this, and then we're gonna get rid of the ducks, okay? I don't know why there's birds on that. I think that's awfully strange. But I think that's the kind of cab we want. All right. There's like weird bird-headed people on it. You'll see. Okay. Transform, flip horizontal. Okay, so this is what our cab's going to look like. I also need to do, we'll start by kind of working it out. I think it would be ideal if it's not, okay, maybe we need to draw this in magenta so it's clear. We're almost at the 2-hour mark, so. See if we can rock this thing. Okay. I definitely want to have this overall shape down. Get that first. We're going to have our carriage thing. Okay. Let's just do it. Let's just draw it. Be bold. All right. There we go. There we go. There's like a little stoop thing here. That's going to actually come in a little more. We have this, but this is cut off by like a lantern of sorts. We're going to obviously not have this be eagles driving it. That's clearly, I don't think in Victorian England people had eagle heads. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they did. Maybe Victorian England was dominated by eagle-headed folks. Just suspecting that's probably not the case. So, okay, so here's going to be, I'm going to have a single cabbie. Who's going to be here. He's going to be wearing the sort of typical cab uniform that we've been kind of seeing throughout, where it looks like most of them were like bowler caps. And then he is going to have, okay, there's going to be the wheel here. It's going to be a lot smaller. That wheel is going to be like a little bit more like this. We're going to have another wheel here. Much more, a lot easier to draw than bike wheels, wagon wheels. It's interesting though, because you really do look at like the frame of a bike wheel, and it was like a really cool way to do a frame because it's very resistant to impact. It's definitely like a modern, more kind of modern take on things, you know. Okay, so I think that guy might be like a little too large. The way I drew him, he looked like a bit of a gigantic dinosaur. I don't know. Again, maybe in Victorian England, people were gigantic dinosaurs, but I tend to think that's probably not the case. Hi, Philip. Philip's back. How you doing? I hope well. I like the idea of this cab. It's going to be in the darkness. Maybe we can have the cab come back just a little bit. I just wanted to make, I want to make sure that we're not totally covering 50 Wimple. Okay. So then we're going to do our scenario here where the cab is most definitely going to have a like lower base there and like a little bit lower of a thing here. It's going to have like a good kind of connection here, and then we're going to draw our horses. This is a 2-horse carriage. And we'll have like blinders on the horses' heads. And there's going to be 2 of them. They're going to have their sort of reins attached. And then we're going to do just a little bit of shading on the horses, and then we'll convert this to kind of, again, these are roughs, but if we can kind of work out the sizing, the placement, all of that, it can't be on the sidewalk, right? So we probably want to actually have it a little cut off, like a Rob Liefeld comic. We're not going to show the feet, you guys. But I actually think that works. So then we're going to have our clatter. Okay. So that's like a throwback to earlier, where we had our clatter at the intro of this whole sequence at 50 Wimple. And this should be the kind of closing sequence there. So now we're going to do just some white behind the area so that it's pretty obvious that so we can kind of bring out a little more of the guy and, like, you know, differentiate a little bit so you guys can tell the carriages in the foreground. It's not a ghost carriage. They aren't see-through. Although a ghost carriage would be cool. And honestly, might hint at some of the future things to come. All right, so now we just need to change the time of day on the rest of this page. But first I need to merge this down. I need to merge this down. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's get some time of day change going here. Philip said, "I'm all right, thanks. Been a chaotic few days." Yeah, I hope everything's all right, man. Yeah, it's been chaotic for me. I don't know if it's similar. For me, I just got really sick. So now I'm like way behind. So that's the source of my chaos, which is probably not like the worst thing in the world. We all, you know, have moments where we get sick or whatever. For me, that was the worst of it for me. How about you? So just adding a little bit of depth and mood to this, because this should be nighttime. I really want to be clear that it's nighttime, you know? You're stealing away, sneaking it out late at night. All right. That will do it for the rough for page 19. I'm pretty excited about that. Now I'm curious if I should do the rough for page 20 or if it would be a good time to call it so I don't get more sick. Whew. You know what I'm going to do? While I think about that, I'm going to put on the trailer for 2 stories. So, 2 stories, trailer number 2, the Christmas trailer for 2 stories, my graphic novel that is currently out. Here's the trailer, and I will be shortly back. there was my very exciting, very optimistic trailer for 2 Stories. It was originally made for Christmas release when we released it, and so it was like, hey, this Christmas it's like kind of an unconventional story was the angle I was going with that trailer. You know what? I have been functioning at about like 89% today, and like even when I would work on art, I just have to like crash for a bit because I'm just getting over a cold. And usually I'm like, let's go hard, let's push. But tonight I'm gonna call it. I'm just gonna call it. I think that's the responsible choice. And then tomorrow, when I get home from work, hopefully I'll have some steam left to like actually push a little further and get more done. But we got some stuff to show my publisher, which is cool. So I've got today we roughed out page 18 and 19, and we're in pretty good standing. I think hopefully at some point soon I'll be able to get going on some final pages too. So that's pretty good. That's good. I appreciate everybody who has shown up, hung out with me for the last like 2 hours and whatnot. I hope you guys are making really good progress on your own personal projects, and that you're all doing well and in good health. Honestly, it's just been like one of those crazy ones, you know. Oh, Philip said I'm still going to be up for another hour or two myself. Okay, well, Philip, maybe tomorrow. Maybe we'll do a later night tomorrow. At least on my stream, because I just again I gotta make the right call here. I could probably work till 2 in the morning, and then end up regretting it tomorrow and not getting any work done when I get home, which wouldn't be beneficial for the book or for anyone. So I'm gonna call it, but I appreciate all of you guys. And oh, Philip said it was good to see you for a little while. I'll try to catch you later tomorrow night. Awesome. I'll see you then. Gary, Corey, I believe Chris Caligula, like quite a few awesome friends and stuff showed up in the chats. And I encourage everybody, obviously, if you're watching this channel and you enjoy it, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell. But also, I encourage you guys after the fact, check out the chats. Like almost everybody, I shouldn't say almost everybody. Everybody in our chats are artists themselves that were in the chats tonight, and really good artists in their own right and working on their own personal projects. And I think it's a really fun community because we're always working on stuff, and I think always inspiring each other to kind of make better stuff and to constantly be at that drawing table making stuff. I appreciate you guys helping me work through these panels and hanging out with me while I'm kind of comping this out. And I'm eager now, especially this page, I feel has a lot of movement and really does lead you through the page in a classic Z pattern, but also has like some dynamic paneling, which I want to introduce every once in a while into like the kind of more structured paneling. Yeah, so I feel like it was a pretty good night. And with that being said, there's another thing I'll say, which is I'm forgetting what it's called, but it's like super thanks. If you guys enjoy these streams, feel free to give a super thanks. That supports what I'm doing, and it's a way to kind of super chat after the fact. But like a buck or two here or there really goes a long way to kind of continue making these things, and also for me to continue making comics. And I've been noticing the subscriber count going up a little bit on my YouTube channel. So I want to say thank you to all the new subscribers that have done this. And then also just one last thing. Let's say you're like, I can't kick in a buck. We're all broke artists. I get it. Then if you're not in a scenario like that, then obviously just do something like leave a comment or just hit like the thumbs up button after you've watched this, and that'll do it. And I'm really it's kind of heartbreaking because it's like I really want to. I'm in a good zone, so I want to continue working. But unlike usual, I'm actually going to make the right call and call it a night. So you guys have a good night, and I will see you on the next live stream. And I'm glad to be back kind of doing this. So yeah, I'd rather have health and continuity than just a night of going really long. That'll do it. I will see you guys on the next stream, and that'll probably be tomorrow night. So have a good night.